Hey guys, welcome back to Plane Tyro. It's your boy Donald Wonder, and I'm back to do another podcast. And you know what, guys? If you remember back in the day, back in our old anime podcast days, one of the things I really liked to used to do was I like to have people on to interview, people on to guest spot, people on to have discussions with us about things we have common interests about. And as you know, we're going through an international anime phase on the channel. That's the theme. But anime is something that I kind of stray away from because I'm, trying to varietize, as I said before. But you know what? We're going to change things up because we are going to have a guest on. We are going to have someone that's in the anime community doing something very interesting, something I find very fun. And without further ado, if you don't know my fellow YouTuber friend Gax-Bot, I'm going to introduce him. Welcome to Planet Tyro.
Hey, awesome to be here.
Sure. So, here's a little background, people. If you don't know Gax-Bot, I'm going to put something on the screen right now to show you what he does. He does anime news roundups. I think he does a good job of capturing the best, most interesting parts of what's going on in anime currently. I find it very entertaining. Stop watching this podcast. If you haven't heard of him, watch the video right now. Come back, listen to him, because then you'll be interested to know who this guy is. And then, here's Mr. Gax-Bot, and we're going to have him on because, like I said, he's into to anime news. He's got his finger on the pulse. He's doing something very unique. And we're going to talk about him, his past, him as an anime fan, and we're going to have a really nice discussion about the anime industry, the animation industry, anime in general. And yeah, so again, welcome Mr. Gax-Bot. And you know what, I'm going to first start. You've given your name, but what does Gax-Bot mean? I'm actually curious. Is that anime related, or is that something you came up with? Where did the name come from?
Oh, Jesus. Okay, long story on that. The name Gax actually just comes from my first six string, my guitar model. It's a Ibanez Gax 70, and I started using that name when I was about 15, I think. And then, yeah, the name ended up sticking. Trying to use all kinds of different screen names. No one would ever not call me Gax, so it just kind of became a part of me. I edited the bot after I joined a website, geek news website called Big Shiny Robot. And I was very creative. They all have robot names that they have for their screen names for that website. I was super creative and innovative by just sticking bot on my previous screen name.
Genius. Absolute genius.
Oh yes, why mess with the branding?
Sure. So, we're going to get more into your history, personally about anime. But first, just generally, how long have you been doing your anime YouTube videos for?
Oh, I guess really my starting point was I worked on old web series, and I tried very hard to be the nostalgia critic, and it turned out I wasn't very good at it. After that, I actually went to an anime convention just out of the blue, and I went to a panel for, I think it was just self-publishing or something like that, and that's where I met my editor for Big Shiny Robot. So I asked a bunch of really specific questions, and then as I was walking out the door as the panel ended, he just kind of like grabbed my shoulder and say, "Hey, you sound like you know what you're doing. Submit something to us, and we'll see if we like it, and we can put it on the website." I was like, "Okay."
Cool. So, sorry, what's Big Shiny Robot? Just so I can put it on the screen and show the people. What's Big Shiny Robot?
Big Shiny Robot is a local geek news site. Lots of really talented writers on there. Big fan of a weekly one that one of my friends does is Saturday morning cartoons, where he just revisits all the weird old series to see if they're actually any good.
Ha! That sounds familiar. I think I might have heard of that. How long have they been around for?
Hell if I know.
You work for them, you don't know? Come on now.
Longer than I've written for them.
Okay, well, I think that's fair enough. And you're still kind of associated with them, even though you're doing the anime video stuff on YouTube, though, right?
Oh yeah. I've been kind of breaking away to do more of the anime news stuff, because, frankly, I'm better at talking than I am at writing. Plus, my editors all hate how I can't spell.
Yeah, those English editors, well, not English per se, but I know editors, they can be a stickler for publishing. But I thought the publishing industry was dead. I thought the newspaper was dead. But in geek culture, I guess that's a completely different story. But anyway, people, I digress. Now, one thing I do want to say, Gax, about your videos is, well, people, let me give you some background how I came across Gax. On Reddit, sometimes we share our content on different sites, like Reddit, and I saw there was an anime community, was it anime reviews /r, whatever, and I saw Gax was posting on there, I saw one of his videos, and what I want to say, because I'm going to comment on your videos right now, is that your presentation for your anime news is comical, it's visual, and I mean, there's thousands of anime YouTube channels on right now, and they are, most of them are just a guy in front of the camera. They say, oh, they read anime chapter reviews, manga reviews, and in terms of anime news, they might just have an opinion, but that's basically it. No presentation, no nothing gritty, just their opinion, and I guess there's big names like for Neverworld, or you know what, and the only other news that I can think of is Anime News Network, ANN, obviously. But again, when I saw your channel and when I saw your videos, I said, shit, man, he's telling me the news, he's making me laugh. And he's giving me the visuals, it's giving me the whole, this presentation that's really fun. And ironically, I'm not going to say it's the newest thing I've seen because, there's a lot of Hollywood's live action shows like, Hollywood Network. They do something similar, but in terms of anime, I haven't seen someone do that in the anime community. So I think what you're doing is actually pretty unique. It's pretty entertaining.
Thank you. When I was planning out the show and looking around, that's one thing that shocked me. It's just no one was reporting on anime news, at least not in the way I wanted to. It was just mostly a bunch of people just vlogging and kind of talking about it unscripted, and I just never really found that too entertaining because they never got into the nitty-gritty of what that news is or why this is important or what's going on with it.
Sure. And, like I said, you don't see a lot doing that. And I really felt like you found that niche. And, I think it's a typical thing for YouTubers to say that, oh, man, I wish you were bigger, man. You should have thousands of subscribers. But I am going to say that shit because, you know what? I see what you're doing. And looking at your subscriber count, and I hate to say it, I'm like, this guy is severely underrated. This is a fucking crying shame. Which is why you're on this goddamn podcast. And even though I don't have as much, that much more podcast to help you per se, I want to bring you on because you are doing something unique. You are doing something fun. And like I said in the beginning, that's what we like to do here on Planet Tyro. We like to shine the light on people doing interesting things in the community, especially in the animation community. And, I think you're doing something really cool in anime, yada, yada, yada. Enough ass kissing, but that's not the only reason I got you on here. Yes, we're promoting your show. Yes, we're promoting the good stuff you're doing. But also, we're going to have a talk about the animation industry. The anime industry in particular for you, because obviously you're looking at anime news. You're kind of an anime journalist in that sense. So I'm going to ask you a few questions. We're going to speak about how it is because the landscape has changed a lot over the couple of years. And people, if you followed the channel, you've noticed I've spoken to a lot of people in the anime community. Probably most notably is that anime snob who still does videos. He's a good friend of mine, even though he's a fucking asshole. He doesn't mind me saying that, and I'll probably have him back on one day. But we've got the pulse of people from the anime community, different perspectives. Basically, we want to get different perspectives. And now it's been a few years since you've heard me talk about the anime community, and now we've got Mr. Gax on, who's doing something different. He might have a different perspective, and we're going to talk about anime 2015, 2016, where it's gone, what's changed, what's happening. And we're going to have a nice conversation, and we're going to have a bigger conversation of how anime plays a role in the animation game. Because, in terms of anime and pop culture, it's risen to new heights. It really, really has. And that's got a lot to do with simulcast, a lot more companies, a lot more titles, namely something like Attack on Titan, which has really just blown it up into the royal stratosphere. So, Gax, we're going to have that good old conversation. And people, I want to warn you, I have a feeling this is going to be a long podcast.
Oh my.
So, strap in, guys, because this ain't going to be the normal 10-minute YouTube videos you're used to. It's a podcast with two very opinionated fellows. And before we get into more of the discussion stuff, Gax, I want to get more into you, because this isn't as much about you as it is going to be about the future discussion about animation, yada yada. So, you've spoken about what you're doing now, kind of how you got into what you're doing, but you know what? I want to speak to you as an anime fan first. So what I want to ask is, you know what, man? Let's talk about you getting into anime and you as an animation fan. Talk about your history with anime and animation from a young age to now. Don't go on forever, but, kind of give us a nice condensed version so we can see your visual perspective on animation and anime in general.
Yeah, dive in and dissect my inner weeb. Find the heart of it.
Yes, why not? Go ahead.
I had the greatest experience at a con. It was the con that I met my editor at. I had a group of people, really, really cute girl, just never got her number, just distracted. We were all talking about, what was their first anime, she was telling me it was like Sailor Moon or something and just caught it on TV or a friend suggested it. When I was probably too young to see it. My dad worked at a computer shop, and they had always had discount bins and stuff like that. He would just always come home with arms full of stuff. He got a copy of Tank Police on a gimmicky CD format that doesn't even remotely work now. I still have it. And at probably 13, 12, something like that, I saw Tank Police, which is a really obscure OVA based on a manga that no one's ever heard of.
Yeah.
And when I told this girl that, her instant reaction was like, "How old are you?" It's like, I'm like 23. This was years ago. I'm not going to tell you how many years ago. But and from that point on, I just constantly got introduced to it. You know, I saw the first airing of Pokemon and just chance meetings for anime all over. You know, all my friends were really into it, and I just constantly experienced it throughout its hype and kind of its lows.
Okay, so apart from the anime side of it, what about just general animation? You a fan of American cartoons and, you know, Disney and yada yada, the typical Western stuff as well?
Oh yeah, definitely. I remember as a kid, you know, I just wouldn't touch anything that wasn't animated, and that just never changed.
Yeah. Would you say, are you one of those, I prefer anime more than traditional cartoons guys, or do you feel both equally? Or do you separate the two? Do you mix them up? How do you feel about anime versus cartoons, or do you even make that differentiation at all?
I don't know if I really do. I mean, there's certainly, like, there's all kinds of different cultures that do provide, you know, very interesting takes on animation. I really don't think you can argue with Japan, you know, producing the highest quality, the most in-depth stories and everything. But you know, I'm a fan of American cartoons. You know, Steven Universe is like my favorite thing on the air right now.
Awesome, yeah, it's a good show. I've watched a few episodes myself, and a lot of people are saying it is the closest thing to an Americanized anime, or however we're doing it, Amerime is the term that we used to use. But it is really cool, and I do see that there's so much influence back and forth, and they've so obviously Avatar's another massive kind of cross diverse anime American mixture hybrid kind of show. So yeah, I mean now, well, I don't want to speak for you, but making those distinctions or segregating animation that way, I wouldn't say it's pointless, but the lines are becoming more blurred as time goes on.
Definitely, everyone's influencing everyone else.
Yeah.
I mean, French animation is incredibly underrated, but wow, they've done some incredible stuff, especially in the 80s.
Yeah. Yeah, like Ulysses 31. I don't want to bore people and start naming them. I'm going to show my age if we start going back in time, and we need to be updated with the youth, because that's another reason why I've had you on. Because you know what, I like your attitude with anime. We've spoken off air, and we've had a long ass conversation, like a 3-hour conversation. And you are the anime optimist. A lot of people my age, because I'm older than you, I'll tell you that much. And a lot of people my age are kind of more, I don't want to say elitist, but they're kind of more picky. They don't like the direction anime is gone now, myself included, which I'll get to in a bit. But that's another reason why I had you on, because things have changed for the better, and for most people have said for the worst. Moving on to the anime industry now, how do you feel about anime as it stands right now, 2015?
I think we had a bit of a down low, you know, over the previous years, but I remember the last podcast I was on, they, like, brought up old, outdated news articles about how the anime industry's dying and everything. I was like, you guys haven't done any research, have you? Like, the industry, wouldn't say it was bad or anything, it was just stale, it was stingent for quite a while, there just wasn't much happening. There were quite a few good shows coming out, but my attitude is there's a lot of people with, like, the American dip of it. Almost all the people that are just not hot on anime and saying, you know, it's new anime's terrible, I only like the old stuff. One, they're nostalgic pricks. Two,
That's me.
yeah.
Go on.
Well, tell me, how often do you watch a lot of dubs, or are you mostly into subs? Tell me.
I've always not cared. Never. I've always watched more subs. I've always enjoyed my dubs. Generally, I don't care.
Damn it! I thought I had you on something.
No,
It's
no, it's fine. It's fine. But the thing is, if you're the old, it depends. Because I'm an old anime fan. The age I grew up in, I don't want to bore you guys. I grew up watching subs because when the internet came out, that's the only way you could watch new anime. Dragon Ball was not enough. That one taste of that anime taste of the first anime series I ever saw, Dragon Ball, when I got on the internet and I saw all these other animes, I didn't care about dubs at the time, but when I saw dubs, it was a nice extra. but I've always been more of a sub guy. If anything, I was more of the dub hater, not even hater, just a sub. I preferred subs, but now I really don't care. And to be honest with you, we're gonna get into this a little bit later, but the simulcast, the whole simulcast boom, which has really increased the volume of anime and the awareness as well, has really done a good job of even crushing the whole dub versus sub thing, because before it really was two-sided, but now because simulcasts are mostly putting out the subs anyway, I don't hear that much complaining. Most people are watching the subs, and the dubs, they're kind of seeing it how I used to see it. They would see the subs first and then watch the dubs afterwards. Before, when people were, well, you know, maybe I'm speaking for myself, but my friends are like, oh, now most everyone watches the subs on simulcast, and then when the dubs come out later, they check it out, but they're not hating on them. They're not hating on them. But I think also, let you talk a minute, I think also that's got to do with the voice actors are putting more energy into it now. It's come a long way, and a lot of the complaints were dubs were not produced well in general. So I don't think it was just blind hate. I do think behind it there was quality control issues and, you know, for kids, you know.
Yeah, I wrote something on Tokyo Pop recently.
Yeah, so yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you there. Were you going on there?
Oh, no, I've got nothing. I was just thrilled and enthralled with the sound of your voice.
My rambles, people can't stand my rambles. But yeah, I mean, all right, let me continue to get you back on track, because I have a knack for derailing people. So as you were just saying, I mean, when I asked you, you know, how you feel about anime now, and you just said that people, you know, are snobs and they're nostalgia tards, and, you know, they're very critical in anime, and I was just asking you because you said that people said anime was dying, right? And you said they didn't do their research. But I mean, a lot of the US distributions were closed, and Bandai and a lot of the other ones, a lot of the dubs were being shut down, and people were seeing anime as dying. The creativity was dying. The harem, the overuse of harems, the overuse of the lolicon or the moe, the whole moe blob thing that's kind of still going on today. So, what do you have to say again? I mean, I felt like people have justified cause to be upset because of the money, because distribution shutting down, because, like I said, they were overusing certain tropes, or certain types of anime seem to be the only ones coming out. But from your perspective, were we just moaning too much, or how did you see it at that time, or even now?
Really, I mean, you can't really reflect that, you know, pulling out of, you know, the US or a lot of the really crappy studios in the US doing remakes and dubs and stuff like that shutting down. That's not really affecting Japan's industry whatsoever. I mean, anime was, you know, they're doing even more anime every season. It's insane. Have you ever tried to watch everything that comes out in a season? I can't do that. I have to eat food every other day and pay rent. But it's, you know, we're getting to the point where it's a huge thing, and it's starting to make its way back out of Japan and really come into the limelight. But, you know, every major film director at the moment is citing, you know, anime and manga as their, you know, influences for style and pushing things through. It's not everyone's recognized it at this point, but it's Japanese pop culture has really bled into, you know, art as an identity as a whole throughout cinema, comics, cartoons. You know, we were just talking about Cartoon Network with some of their stuff, you know, being very heavily influenced by anime now. So it's an underlying thing. It's part of art history and cinema at this point. It's, you know, a really large growing industry, and even if it does die, even if no one likes it, everyone ignores it outside of Japan, you know, in Japan, manga artists are still rock stars.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Let me get into what you just mentioned there, because you got a good point. Me and some other people might have said animation was dying, but as you just pointed out, if we look at the numbers, the amount of shows being produced seasonally has increased. There's too much anime to watch. And simulcast even. You talk about simulcast, because I feel like the simulcast is really, over the last 3 or 4 years, what is it? Crunchyroll, Hulu, Netflix, these guys have really done a great job of pushing more anime out there.
Yes, Crunchyroll has way too much of my money at this point.
Okay, you're a premium subscriber as well?
Oh, damn right. What, it's like $7.99? I mean, I could wait a week and see the new episode of One Piece then, but I want it now.
I thought Funimation controlled that, actually. I didn't know that was Crunchyroll.
Funimation controls the dub.
Right. There you go. Just shows. See, because I only watch the sub. You see, I'm showing my colors right now.
And to be fair, I watched the dub until I ran out of episodes, and I was like, no, I can't stop. I can't stop.
Well, there you go. Well, you were dub. Well, how do you feel about dubs versus sub? I might as well ask because we just went through your thing.
It's a bit of a quality thing. Funimation is kind of in an interesting point where they're trying to, word for word match the subtitles and cross and make the genre just, an instant translation to English.
How do you feel about that? Because I don't like that.
It depends. There's a lot of producers in the industry that try and make their own take on it. There's more than a few that I could name that murderous thoughts all the time. But I find it interesting because we're not watching anime to see some producer's take on it to make it more Americanized or more open to a world audience, when we're there to see what the artist intended, what the artist wanted to bring to us and show us, not some watered down interpretation changing the names around to make it easier to pronounce.
I understand what you're saying, but the argument they used to use against that was that it was localization, and some of the things that the Japanese didn't translate over in the Western audiences, like puns, things to do with the society, and so many times they had to change things, even the food, that it just wouldn't. No, don't get me wrong. I appreciate them just being more faithful to the source material, but at the same time, I don't. You know what? I've heard another argument where it's like you get two shows at the price of one, because sometimes when the dub do their own take on it, it's like if you want the original version, you can watch the Japanese sub. If you want to watch this crazy, more comical, where they kind of. Sometimes I feel like it was on purpose. Sometimes I felt like they didn't do the translation well. But I always felt like I got a double anime in that sense. But the way you make it sound like that's just complete blasphemy.
I mean, there's a few different ones that have really interesting takes on it. I'm all for, not like matching voice actor, tone for tone, because there's a lot of voice acting tricks and a lot of things they tend to use that don't really sound great in English or other languages. I mean, even to this day, Goku's still voiced by a woman, because that was the woman they picked to do the series back in Dragon Ball, so... Which I don't think would translate very well. I mean, it barely translates to my ears at this point.
Yeah, I mean, the point I was going to make is, like, for example, the One Piece opening themes, Funimation tried to translate as much of it as possible word for word, and when it's sung, because the Japanese rhyme with their words or however it's constructed, it sounds like a song. But when they sing in English, it sounds forced, like they're trying to force words that don't fit together into a song just to be more faithful. And as a result, it comes up sounding like weird. It doesn't sound like a song anymore. It just sounds like words over a melody that kind of doesn't make any sense. Pirates in the world, and it's like, huh? This isn't a song. This is words being spoken. Like spoken. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I mean, I think a lot of it's more manageable when you are reading the subtitle, where you're just like, oh yeah, that makes more sense in my head. It's, the same thing with books, translated into certain films. It's like, that scene does not work as spoken language when someone's directly talking to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, the cheesiness becomes a little bit more manageable inside your head when you're reading it. I would argue that, but, even if it is cheesy, I don't really want to see some producer's take on it to make it more appealing to a mass audience. I want to see what the artist, came up with and brought.
In your English language, is what you're saying.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Well, not great at Japanese yet, but we're getting there.
That's what I mean, because, like I said, the argument's always, if you want to watch the original, just watch it in Japanese. My English stuff, I don't care, as long as I can understand it. But anyway, let's move away from that, because we're going around in circles on that. But you know what? Like I said, you're an optimist when it comes to anime. I don't think you'd be doing an anime news show if you wasn't supportive or very positive about anime, which is cool. So, speaking about anime today...
Have you seen my show? Every week I bitch about Evangelion products.
No, that's different, Gax. Don't bring that up. Don't bring up Eva. That's some bullshit right there. But don't get me started. But no, what I'm saying is, being in today, 2015, what do you see in anime that's really got you positive? That's really got you like, yes, I still love the anime industry. Yes, this is still good. Yes, I want people in this medium. yes, this is something to get behind? What's still giving you the energy to do this?
The quality keeps on ramping it up, especially right now. We have Parasite, we have Attack on Titan, One Piece is still good. I like One Piece, by the way. Did you hear that I like One Piece?
Oh, I like One Piece too. And you know what's so funny? People call me a hypocritical cunt for liking One Piece because I'm so critical, but I like one of the most dumbest, flimsy storyline, contradictory shows that's just comedy. But like I keep telling people, I'm gonna say it again. One Piece is in my top 5. It's just a comedy. It's just a comedy. Forget about the storyline. Okay, 700 episodes. You can't watch from the beginning, but yes, we like One Piece, Gax. Not just you. We like One Piece.
You see, there's a samurai who fights people with a sword in his mouth.
Yeah, and other 2 in his hand.
Yeah.
And he's blind now. Half blind.
Oh, yeah. After the redesign. Which I didn't like.
Yeah, so what other anime have got your interest recently anyway? If you can name any titles.
This season really didn't have too much that really grabbed me. A lot of it, I've really been enjoying... Yeah, a lot of this season, actually, I was just watching One Piece and Monster Musume, which is incredibly shameless.
I saw the cover.
No, you see, I watched it for research. Research, you see.
Sure. Now, I saw the cover of that, and I thought to myself, this guy was being covered by a woman snake. She looked like she was choking him. I was like, and I'm like, he's gonna be having these innuendo sexual fan service moments with these monsters. It looked really fun. Don't get me wrong. Obviously, it's fan service to have him to a whole nother level. Because we've seen demon girls before, but these are real fucking monsters, right?
Research, Donald. Research.
So, but you know what? I'm gonna go back. Let's go back to the negative zone. You said you're critical, right?
Oh, yes.
There's a lot of people, right, in the anime community right now, especially the anime snob, who I agree with a lot of the time, by the way. I was on Reddit the other day, and I gotta tell you, Gax, I'm not happy with the anime industry right now. And this is in terms of storyline. One of the best things about Japanese anime is the animation. The visual animation is fucking stunning. It looks nearly all anime now looks gorgeous. And when you go back from the 70s to 80s, just seeing the evolution of anime as an art style, it's just so phenomenal. Unfortunately, and I can only speak for myself and a few other elitists when I say this, I feel like the story creativity, unfortunately, has suffered and is not being as original and experimental as it used to be. A lot of people are saying anime of today are following the light novel model. Have you ever heard of the light novel model, Gax?
Please elaborate.
The light novel model is a set of rules that every anime recently seems to follow. And it's a set of 7 kind of standards. And to be honest with you, they're very broad, they're kind of general, but it feels like they're checkboxes. It feels like when the anime team, anime production company in the script writing phase, they've got 7 checkboxes that they have to tick. And most animes today, especially in the last, I can name 5, I think a couple just aired recent weeks, and they all tick these 7. So guys, listeners, correct me if I'm wrong. If you don't like what I'm saying, leave a comment down below. But check this out, guys. This was on Reddit, and I currently agree with it. So here's the 7 light novel checklist that it seems to be most anime follow. Number 1, make sure the characters are teenagers or high schoolers. Check.
I could debate on that, but go down your list.
Number 2, our protagonist is some generic looking nobody with hidden potential. Number 3, setting is either a high school or a military-esque institution of some sort. Number 4, you're going to rebuttal this in a bit. Number 4, create a harem of girls or boys with each archetype or stereotype common to anime, especially in the recent 10 years. I said general. I did say general. Number 5. This is the obvious one. Use sexual cliches, innuendo, or sexual situations such as falling into someone, grabbing their breast, walking into the girl's shower room, into the girl's locker room, yada yada yada. Fan service of various extremes. I think that's a big one anyway, most anime.
Oh yeah. Thank you, Go Nagai.
Number 6. Use either an overly convoluted or overly simplified power system. And number 7, yeah, don't worry. I'm really looking forward to hear your thoughts on this. And number 7, the last one, this kind of gets me. And actually, I'm very disappointed with this because this happens a lot in anime. Have characters constantly explaining the plot, setting, and what is going on around them to the point of over info dumping, and as a result, making anime series shorter and not giving them the time to develop the story itself.
Yeah, I can't argue with that last one. That's very popular in shonen, but it's not as showy in the manga. It's a lot of just time filler type stuff.
Okay, so what do you think of the rest of the previous six? You said the seven you kind of agree with. So what do you think of the previous six?
There's a few of them I agree with. That first one, that's actually kind of a culture one. When you were saying, teenage heroes that, never adults. I mean, there's quite a few examples of ones that we do have adults. I mean, we have the remake of Ghost in the Shell, we have Psycho-Pass, very adult influenced ones. But part of it, it's actually kind of a bit of culture from Japanese society.
What makes you say that? Elaborate.
Well, when you're an adult and you start working, you need to basically get rid of a lot of your other things that you're doing in life at that point. So once you start working, you're considered an adult. Just instantly you are an adult. And you're working, 12-hour days, 6 days a week. Work has to be your focus. So a lot of stories where they have the protagonist being, very young, high school age students, that's in Japanese culture, that's your time to experiment, to try things out. Dye your hair pink, go watch, full series of manga, go save the world from Sephiroth.
Sure.
That's just kind of the age group where, you're not seen as having a lot of responsibility and it's your time to explore and try new things.
Right. Oh, I agree. That makes perfect sense. I wouldn't even call that an argument. That is a truth. Completely, that's a culture thing, like you said. I completely agree. We've even seen that, even in that TV show Heroes. I remember Hero, one of the main characters. You actually saw him explain that through the TV show. So that's a great point. My only counter argument to that is, I mean, growing up watching anime, I felt like I was seeing more, like you said, Ghost in the Shell is kind of retro, so I would want to cancel that even. And a lot of the other shows I saw when I was growing up, a lot of the older ones like Fist of the North Star and even Dragon Ball Z, some of them, they didn't feel, maybe they were catered towards teens, but they weren't high school young children. And I guess it's shonen, so maybe that's not the best example, but I just feel like now it's like 90% is high school teenage characters. 90%. Feels a bit off kilter. And to be honest, even if they're not young, I think it's the high school setting that is really overblown. Really, but I understand it's cultural and but I'm just like, I don't know. It's becoming tiresome to a lot of people. A lot of people.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's mostly been around that type with, focusing on younger characters. Some of it is for storytelling. It's, to see the character develop from that point.
Yeah.
But, typically when you do see a manga based off an adult character, the manga is normally based around the character's job. So it's just kind of cultural influence on that. I mean, even one of my favorite ones called Legend of Black Heaven, it's about someone who's incredibly dissatisfied with his job and wants to be a rock star.
I gotta watch that. I've never watched that. That sounds really interesting.
Oh, you gotta see it. It's one of my favorites.
But that sounds like something I can relate to. And the funny thing is, you saying that is something I can relate to someone older leaving their job, rather than me being 30-something watching a high schooler going into high. I can't live vicariously through that anymore. In my teens I could, but as I get older, you start to feel a bit weird as an older anime fan watching high school girls upskirts and shit like that. So
yeah, I can definitely get that. Some of the market is meant to appeal to Japanese teenagers. It's the larger audience that we experience, out in the West, outside of Japan. There's a lot more of a open age group that are just more into it. In Japan, it's mostly focused on a teenage audience.
So can we kind of combine it with wish fulfillment then? Because the other three I mentioned, which is harems, you can kind of group that together, because harems, even boys and girls, again, it's fulfilling that fantasy of being in the youth and being in school and being in that environment. So I might as well put them two together as well. But what about the protagonist is always some kind of zero character, nobody with hidden potential? Do you find that more of a trope as something that can be related to? Or do you still feel like that's something that most of the culture could relate to?
I don't know about that. It's mostly just kind of an open-ended storytelling thing. I mean, manga and anime almost work in like a factory setting nowadays, where
Yeah.
your artist, writes a manga and they publish it and they field test it and they get fan feedback and they develop the story and focus on it more rather than having, your typical studio artists and writers, slapping together something they think they're going to appeal to a bunch of different people.
Yeah.
So manga, it's a lot of field testing on that. I can definitely see, when you are making a new story, you do want to make your characters as open-ended as possible. And that's where you see a lot of character development and things along those lines. I mean, there's a lot of, modern examples that are, totally different. I mean, have you watched any of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure?
I've only watched the original OVAs. I haven't watched these reboots, which are more faithful to the manga and which are much longer. I'm putting it off. I want to have a JoJo marathon. So I've seen the first. I know most people haven't even seen the ones I've seen, the early '90s ones, which only cover a part of the first arc. But I haven't seen any of the recent ones, not the reimagining ones. No.
Oh yeah, I mean it's probably a bad example because that is based off of a '80s manga.
Yeah.
But a lot of the stuff that's being published right now is, with Parasite.
Yeah.
Durarara has been running forever.
I'm watching that too. Yeah.
Yeah, I need to get caught up on that. I've been loving Durarara.
It's pretty
And
good.
look, adult characters. Well,
It's a
few of
mix.
them, but
It's a mix. It's a mix. It's a whole town with some adult. Most of them are kids, but a lot of them gang members. But anyway, guys, we were meant to do a Durara review, but we'll talk about it on another video, guys. But you know what I want to ask you? So what is in your? All right, you know what? Does anime? Because you're doing the news, you're covering, you do some research. What's the state of anime financially then? Is it actually doing well? Because a lot of people are under the illusion it's dying, especially with Hayao Miyazaki. He's made some very kind of negative comments about the anime industry recently as well, especially with Studio Ghibli allegedly closing down, which I'm not even sure if that's actually happening or not.
I mean, you could always argue that there isn't Studio Ghibli without Miyazaki, but I mean, and he retires like every other day. I mean,
yeah.
I can mark the calendar. It's like, ooh, is he out of retirement now, or will he be out of retirement tomorrow? But yeah, it's a lot of the aging people in that industry are extremely, negative about it. But Miyazaki's always been really negative about anime, and it's not really for the industry or financial. He just finds that the anime industry and how it's produced, making shows that are, based around teenagers, a lot of tropes.
Yeah.
I mean, Miyazaki hates him some shonen, but it's a current climate in Japan, all kinds of movie directors and people like that are just complaining. It's like everything's about anime. It's like if I want to make something successful, I have to base it off of anime or a manga or something like that because no one will go see it.
You know what? Even feed your point, that Ghost in the Shell movie is taking off, isn't it? In pre-production right now, the Scarlett Johansson Ghost in the Shell movie.
Yeah, the American one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm hoping I'm looking forward to that, but yeah.
The way you just sighed there, like, oh god.
Please don't be bad. Please don't be bad. This is one of my favorites. Please don't be bad.
So what you're saying is that you weren't a fan of Dragon Ball Evolution, that masterpiece. Really, you wasn't a fan.
Yeah. Have you seen my episode where I mentioned that?
No, not really. No.
I believe I said something about the end of the world and hating all of Hollywood.
You sure? You sure you said that? You sure you said?
It sounds like something I would do.
Oh, thought you said it was the greatest show, most underrated movie, best adaptation of an anime series of all time. I guess I misheard you or something. I don't know. Maybe it was just me then. I don't know. But either way.
See, this is where I'm going to say I like open adaptations in cinema. It's just going to bite me in the ass someday down the line. Like someone on Twitter, it's like, that means you like Dragon Ball Evolution. Donald said so. It's like, no!
People are fighting that Akira. It just won't die. Every year,
God.
you hear directors doing it, then they're not doing it, and they won't let it die though. And I feel like it's gonna happen, and it's gonna happen in the Dragon Ball Evolution way. Someone's gonna do a quick hatchet job just so it can be done.
That's what they've been trying to do, actually. They've dumped so much money into it and so much money into pre-production and figuring stuff out. I mean, they recently hired a new writer, which is a decent one. He was on the Netflix Daredevil series. But yeah, they don't want to let it die, and I really want them to let it die.
Yeah.
Steven Spielberg even announced and said, it's like, no, you can't make an American adaptation of this. It's too rooted in the culture.
Oh, I didn't know he said that. Well, someone's talking sense.
I know!
But then, ironically, Chronicle was meant to be the Akira movie no one thought was going to happen. And I have to say, very impressed, and I don't need to see Akira, especially after seeing that movie.
Yeah, well, it's... we're getting way off topic, but Akira is like a very important film to Japanese culture. It was the landmark thing where, the rest of the world started looking at what Japan was doing for animation, and they were just blown away. And I mean, the story, has subtleties and set at its core of, Japan recovering from, the World War II culture, and how, a lot of their youth were extremely rebellious and fighting against tradition, and like the older people thought they were destroying their traditions and everything.
Okay. So, let me get back on topic. You said we were going off. Maybe we got a little bit off topic.
A little bit off. I always rant about Akira.
Let me bring it back in. So, as I keep saying, you seem very positive about the anime community. Unlike me, I'm not really happy with the anime. I feel like the creativity is being lost. But there's something that's happening in the anime. Well, it's not something that's happening. There's a reality in the anime industry that you've been hinting on all through this podcast that bothers me the most. It's a realization that I've come to that I know it's probably going to be a duh moment. Duh. Come on, you didn't realize that, Don? As a Western anime fan, I've come to realize, as you've hinted on, my opinion doesn't make much of a difference.
Definitely not.
I can love an anime, I can hate an anime, I can put my money behind an anime, but just like you said, as Western fans, the anime industry is very insulated in fucking Japan. So we can bitch about, well, I don't know how much you feel about Sword Art Online, but a lot of us...
Yeah, fuck Sword Art. Love the first season.
Don't do it, Gax. Anyway, my point being that if I still hate Sword Art Online, it's the worst anime ever, they should never make a second season, I won't buy it, we'll protest and all that. If everyone in America and the UK hated it and all that, it wouldn't make fuck all difference, because they'll still do what they want, because like the anime industry is catered to the Japanese. Everything, the moe phase that never seems to end, the high school phase, like I said, which is based on their culture. We can talk about how weird anime is, how fucked up it is with fan service and little girls wearing nothing and all these crazy incestual storylines and whatever, but they continue to do it. And even though it becomes bigger in the West, our voice doesn't seem to make a difference in that country. And it's like a realization I've had, and actually it's made me feel more detached as an anime fan.
You know what? I actually find the fact that like they don't care what the rest of the world thinks a little bit invigorating for the art form.
Okay.
Because that's something we see in like... I can't stand most Western movies at this point, because it's... we have to water it down. We have to get to that PG-13 rating to get everyone in the door. And, you can't see anything about, anything that would be offensive or would affect your numbers. Like, no gay characters. There's people that don't like gay characters. We can't do that. Female protagonists, well, that just doesn't fit our marketing. So there's a lot of that really irritates me in the current climate of American media works that I don't feel affected by in Japan. And I kind of, admire any kind of an artist that says, yeah, we don't really give a shit. We're just going to keep doing what we want.
On the flip side to that, though, because anime has got even though people respect it, it has got a bad name for being very hentai-ish, very pornographic. There's a lot of people that think the Japanese are just fucking crazy. If you watch anime, you're just a pervert.
I mean, they are.
True. But I mean, there's some fans that really like anime seriously, and they see it as a valid form. They don't like those negative connotations towards anime, and a lot of it is because of what you're saying, the Japanese culture and the way they do things. Do you feel like it would help them at all if we had like a bigger hand in that industry in some way to influence it, especially?
We do in some ways, actually. Are you familiar with Trigun?
Yeah.
You know how Trigun was massively popular in the US, and it's just, a huge influence, just the world around for anime. It's one of the things that defined it and got everyone interested.
Sure, yeah, sure.
Total flop in Japan.
Really?
Not even. Barely made its money. Total and complete flop. You should, if you actually look at the next episode previews, they weren't even finished. There's lots of white screen in the background. So that show was even rushed. They were just trying to fit demand for it.
Wow, man. This is why I'm glad to have you on, someone who knows behind the scenes, because I never knew that. All I knew as a Westerner was that Trigun was one of Trigun, Cowboy Bebop, Outlaw Star, Dragon Ball Z. These were like the most popular animes coming out at the time, and I thought they were all massive hits. So, and obviously I was obviously curious why Trigun never had a follow-up, because it was so massive, and only, what, 13 years later, they made one movie, Baglands Rumble, and even that was like, yeah, that's a good start, but I want more.
Oh yeah, but that was for the Americans.
That's sad, man.
They, yeah, they basically went. It's like, hey, what's something we can make some money off of? And they went, well, this was really popular outside of Japan. Let's
Okay.
try and make some of that.
But then,
I mean, out of all the shows you just listed, excluding Dragon Ball Z, all of those,
Yeah.
not very popular in Japan.
I'm not surprised about Outlaw Star or something, but then
Outlaw Store, if I remember right, was a big flop, and that's why studios here got it for so cheap.
yeah, people called it like a clone of Cowboy Bebop, like a weaker clone of it, because they had kind of a similar setup-ish. But then I'm thinking, I hear what you're saying, but then why didn't the Japanese milk Trigon for the US? Because it's ain't the dollar stronger than the yen anyway. So why don't they keep on having like a? Why wasn't there 3 other Trigon series that they just made for the US then? Why did they not care so much that even though it was big in the US, they thought, we don't care anyway. You love it, we don't care. Fuck it, we won't make any more anyway. Fuck it.
I could see that, but I'm not so sure if I wanted them to continue on with it, because the manga actually does end right at that story climax. I mean, there's a lot of extra stuff in the manga, but I think the anime is much better.
Okay, never read the manga, so again, I kind of put my foot in my mouth there. But okay, cool. I didn't know that, but still, I felt like it was a financial opportunity if it's done successful. And I'm not gonna obviously. If it didn't do well there, I understand why they wouldn't. But America, the money, and they must have seen for the years. And obviously, down the line, they threw us another movie, which is cool. But again, going back to the main part of me bringing this up, Japan, I still feel like, you know what? Let me step out of the zone of anime for a minute. When I look at Nintendo, for example, as a company,
Mm-hmm.
it's the same kind of mentality. You have something that really works, but the way you market it, I'm talking about the Wii U specifically here, and as a Wii U owner, I feel like, is this the Japanese just doing things their way, no matter what? Even if they did it, even if they looked at certain ways of doing it, it could benefit them more. But I know obviously you can't speak for them, but just from what you know, I mean, do you see where I'm coming from with my confusion, a little bit of frustration as a Western fan? That I feel like anime could be distributed a bit where they could take advantage of certain things more, but they do things. Well, they just don't care. Like, it's a realization I've come to. Like I said, they just don't care. They do things their way, and that's it.
And I kind of admire that. Nintendo's a good comparison, because Nintendo, as a company, doesn't focus their stuff like Sony does or Microsoft does, where they're like, yeah, let's just make innovation. Let's try stuff. Let's throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. I mean, the Wii definitely stuck and, made them plenty of money, but the Wii U is kind of failing just all over, even in Japan.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's kind of, the tradition of the anime industry, and I really admire that fact. I mean, let's compare Nintendo to Kill la Kill with Studio Trigger.
Yeah.
I mean, who is that one supposed to appeal to? Because the fan service is supposed to be like a joke, and, it's very, on the edge and very, like, on the nose. Some people, argue it's a feminist story. Some people argue, it's a disgusting piece of trash.
Yeah.
Some people argue it's like a over-the-top comedy. And, I mean, what market is that supposed to be for, and why is it so damn popular?
Fucking fantastic point. I reviewed Kill la Kill, and I was in that mindset of, I appreciate it, but I think, anyway, I think Kill la Kill is another good example of exactly the point I was just trying to make. But like I said, as a Western fan, I feel disheartened. A lot of people feel disheartened. I think there was an article that started this whole thing that we're not influenced at, because the anime YouTube community is so massive now, yeah, and a lot of them are English speaking Westerners. But no matter how many reviewers, no matter if Gigaku or any of the big YouTubers do videos, does it matter in Japan? Does it make a big deal? Do you know what we really think? Does our money, like, you could say Dragon Ball Z did really good in the box office, right? The movie, Battle of the Gods, and Resurrection F, right?
Yeah. I just got done watching the Attack on Titan movie on the big screen yesterday.
Sure, okay, cool. So, and we're just wondering, unlike the US, who doesn't, I don't even know, when it comes to US movies, they care a lot about domestic rather than international goals. I wonder how the Japanese mindset with anime does. And this all ties, I know, sorry, I'm rambling now. Hope you guys are enjoying. But this all ties back into why you're on in the very first place, international animation. The thing is, anime is a subset of animation. Now, there's a lot of people that just watch anime, period. They don't see any other country. They think American cartoons are just stupid, dumb comedy fun, and anime is the way. Anime do serious, creative storytelling. They have great animation, and I used to be of that sect, but as I've gotten older, that even as you've heard throughout the whole podcast, my love for anime has kind of waned because I feel like they're in their own rut. But on top of that, my opinion isn't going to change anything in that industry at all. All my money. So I feel kind of like, shit, man, whether I like it or hate it, and if I really don't like it, nothing's going to change. What do I do? And that's part of the reason why I've tried to shine a light on other animations as well, because we can't just rely on, we shouldn't just rely on one nation to do everything. You know, animation is for every country. The Americans do good animation. Some of them do, like, I guess, using Spawn as an example, or using Ralph Bakshi as two people that did something that isn't just child friendly, that tried to experiment with animation and do more adult themed compelling storytellings in movies and series forms and such. I kind of want them to do that in more nations, not just in anime. But like I said, if the Japanese are very insulated in what they hear and their feedback and what they're going to do popularity wise, which you admire for having the creative control, and I completely understand. But how do you feel about it as a in the grander scheme of things, as animation? Do you think the evolution of anime? Let me make it clearer for you to answer.
Mm-hmm.
The evolution of anime. How do you see it going now, from this point on? The evolution, and not just in terms of animation visually. I mean, where do you see it going now?
Well, now we get complicated. Like when you mentioned Ralph Bakshi, I'm a huge Ralph Bakshi fan.
Okay.
I think I've seen absolutely all of his films, and yeah, I'm still mad about Cool World. It's interesting because you brought that up. You know, he was an influencer and a trendsetter back in the 80s, and the state of American animation at the moment is just Pixar clone after Pixar clone after Pixar clone. Disney makes something, makes a lot of cash, doesn't do anything else with it for several years.
Yeah.
Then Pixar clone, then Pixar clone. And, our industry is very stale and very stingent because there's nothing happening.
Yeah.
There's no major influencers just really shake things up. There's no, like, independent studios that are trying new things and throwing them out. Yeah. And even when they do, like with the movie 9, it just flops.
Oh man, great example. Thank you. And you know what? You're right. I've been harping on anime too much. Let's go to the Western world. This isn't just me only about anime. You're right. And
Oh man, I was using that as a bridge.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to step on your feet. I'll ramble on. Go on.
So it's interesting what's happening in Japan, that we do kind of experience a similar setup right now. With Gainax and Production IG used to be like the big crazy innovators. Making new exciting forms of animation, testing the limits, doing new things, Evangelion, Ghost in the Shell, very, artistically influenced, shows that broke the trend and set everything else in motion.
Yes.
And it's a lot like George Lucas and Steven Spielberg, who used to be, the major trendsetters, breaking everything up in the industry, reinventing everything. Nowadays, they're making very bad Star Wars and Indiana Jones movies that are stale and no one really enjoys. The innovators became the status quo and got very comfortable. And I would argue, like, what is happening, with the big innovators that were Gainax and Production IG, playing it safe at the moment, we have openings that are coming up for new studios that are doing experimental stuff. Like we talked about Studio Trigger. Those guys are fucking nuts.
Yeah.
They're not playing it safe. They're throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what they can do, and they're expanding a wide net. I mean, they're basically launching, movies that are Japanese Harry Potter.
Little Witch Academia, is that what it's called?
Yeah, Little Witch Academy. And I can't remember, are they launching that into a series, or is it just another movie?
I actually saw on Facebook today, one of my friends posted they got a new series on the horizon as well. I can't remember what it's called, though.
Yeah, I think they announced something, but they don't have anything set in stone. Correct me, commenters!
That's what they're there for.
So it's interesting. I think we are at a point where, the industry is feeling a little bit stale, although I'm liking what they're doing. I mean, they're focusing on adapting older manga into newer shows and, renovating them, like, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Parasite, Durarara.
Sailor Moon.
Yeah, let's not talk about Sailor Moon.
Dragon Ball coming back, baby! Dragon Ball Super!
And that's new material.
Yeah. you know that's funny you should bring it up because I was actually happy the death of long running shonen. I never thought it was a good thing for anime. One Piece being the exception because it's a comedy, but story driven. Unless you have an end in mind, I don't. You know, I'm not a fan of anything, even like a TV show like Lost. If you don't have an end sight in mind, and you start to, when you're watching the show and it's long running, you start to feel like the manga doesn't really know where this is going. And even though something like Bleach, I guess the manga's still I'm not even sure if the manga's still going on that.
No, the manga ended.
Well, I felt like long running shonen it was a good thing to see it go, but when I asked you about the future of anime, when I look at anime, all I see is trends. I see there's this season, there's the trend of the harem, there's a trend of the computer game MMO, which I felt like we're just coming at the end of now. And now I don't know what would you say the trend of anime is right now? And you know, you see a lot of shows of the same type.
I wouldn't. I mean, I think there's definitely series niches that they produce, one every year. I mean, you have the violent action show, you have the comedy, you have, the bordering on hentai fan service show. And, I mean, there's a new version of that, every single season.
Yeah.
So it's a very, very wide net. If you're following the new releases, you're bound to find something that's familiar that you're going to enjoy. But it's the entertainment industry in Japan is so focused on anime and manga as a whole that it's a pretty wide net.
Okay. You know what's funny? You say that I see patterns. I see why you say a wide net. I do see a lot of patterns. It feels like there's smaller sects of what's actually out there. But like I said this before, I really like your perspective and enthusiasm because as I'm speaking to you, you're kind of like, no, you're not seeing the bigger picture, and you do bring a lot of reality to the situation, which I do agree with. But like I said, innit, like the last season, I saw so many series like this high school boy is super powered. He's kind of the underdog who's a transfer student, and he's got this tsundere girl around him, and they're going to end up being a couple fighting these big monsters. It's either in a computer game, or they're in a school, or they're in the military. It just seems like the same setup 5 different times. I think there was 5 shows this season I saw that had that theme pat. And those are the ones that like have the biggest names. I wish I could remember them. I should name them before people crucify me in the comments. But I see trends in anime. It's always been that way. Don't get me wrong. It's always been that way. There's no originality. Nothing's new under the sun, and there's always copycats. But someone said to me, maybe it's just generational, and maybe actually some of the big YouTubers made videos about every anime generation has their thing, and this anime generation, you say anime failed, but it's just your time's over. Just like with music, like with hip hop, or like with pop, or things evolve, and you become that old man saying, well, back in my days, it wasn't like this. And, you become that guy when in reality, things are just not the way you want them to be.
Oh, yeah. And I would argue, I have a lot of fans, like, it's just not the same. They're not making the same kind of anime.
Yeah.
I just want my old stuff back. It's like, well, first off, you're really overemphasizing how great those shows were, because, frankly, I've watched them in retrospective to get myself caught up. They're not all that great. And, I mean, the new hotness, there's a lot of stuff that's replacing, what was popular back in the day. Definitely Attack on Titan's replacing the popularity of Evangelion.
Yes.
I look at the merchandise, the fans, and all that stuff in there. I mean, even the cast have similar personality types. It's just rotated one to the left.
How did you feel about Attack on Titan High School Chibi version? How did you feel about that?
I was doing a report on that, and I read the first 2 chapters of the manga, and I decided to save myself the pain.
And you know what? I'm gonna kind of draw the conversation to a close because there's a question I want to ask you, a wider scoping question that is tied to what I'm doing this month. It's about worldwide animation. But before I do, because I've kind of dragged you by the heels and brought you on my side of things, is there anything you want to elaborate on any part of this conversation before I ask you a very interesting question? That's a quid pro quo.
I'd have to say subscribe to my channel.
Oh, you'll have plugs. Don't worry about that. But
no, I'm kidding. I don't really know. a lot of it's just perspective. Even this week, I had a friend that was just, he decided it's like, I don't like anime anymore. There were a few old shows that I absolutely hate. He went to an anime convention with his girlfriend, and now he's asking me every day. It's like, hey, what is this show? How is that? What does this compare to? I may not like it, but he's a huge fan of Sword Art Online right now, and he's binge watched the entire series in like less than a week.
The thing is, Gax, I love animation. I always will. I can sit here and tell you I have problems with anime, but I've spent thousands of pounds with anime, Gax. Thousands. I've always keep one of the reasons I'm glad I met you is because I like your point of view and I think you have good taste. And I want to surround myself with people that can show me what I should focus my attention on. And that's what I want reviewers and people on YouTube to do. I want us to point us in the direction because there'll be shit in any medium, not just anime, in everything, music, movies, TV shows, everything. And I want there to be people that kind of show you this is what you should be putting your focus on, this is what deserves our attention, and this is what should be nurtured. And with anime right now, I feel like it's it's a generational thing. Like it's definitely not what it was in my day. I felt like it's seen its best days, but I always feel like, well, as you just said, we're in a phase of even rebooting retro. So even I'm getting what I wanted. I like Parasite. I thought it was a good show. But it's kind of a retro show, and JoJo's the same. I know I'm going to love JoJo, because that was my time, like Fist of Star-ish kind of stuff. As for newer shows, I look at them with a little bit of disdain, just like you said about your friend. But the funny thing is, it could be one show that will turn it all around for me, And I just think no one should ever quit on anything because you never know what could turn it around. Like I said, this could be a whole phase of anime doing certain things. Then one show could come around and the whole genre could be changed. And I don't think it matters, like I said, that as Westerners, we might not have an effect. In Japan, some mangaka could come up with something very creative, something new, a new type of shonen, a new type of josei, shoujo, whatever, and it could completely change the landscape. And getting to what you said about praising anime for its creativity, the fact that it doesn't have the restrictions of the word cartoon, which is meant to be for children, gives it that possibility to become something still worth checking out. And Attack on Titan, for example, is very creative. Very creative. I think it's really cool. It's a nice people are saying it's kind of a take on the zombie kind of thing because it's being chased by these ensemble beasts. I see similarities between Attack on Titan and like the zombie thing. But the way the anime spin on it with Titans is really cool. The time is set in with these guys shooting across them. Awesome. Really awesome. And only in anime.
Yeah.
Only in anime would you get that. So, but since you don't have anything to say, I gave you a chance. Don't say I didn't give you a chance. I'm going to ask you my question. So, like I said, I kind of hinted on this before. My whole thing with doing this animation month is I'm moaning about anime. But do you think it's possible for other regions to pick up animation and do animated series like anime? Do you ever think that's going to happen? Do you think that's even possible?
I don't see why not. It's a very expensive medium to get into. There's a lot of, countries all over the world that are making, indie video games that are, changing, the landscape and getting very popular.
Yeah.
Animation's, a very, very expensive medium. There's Korean animation, which varies, but I've seen some pretty good stuff from them.
Yeah.
French animation I really enjoy, although I would argue that it's been pretty stale lately. So, I would absolutely argue that anime is not a genre. It's a medium.
Yeah.
There are different, quirks and different things that happen in anime, and a lot of, cliches and things that you don't see in different mediums, but, it's not a genre. It's interesting as anime fans, we just, define it as, yeah, I really like anime, which is like the most open-ended thing possible. What do you mean by that? Do you like, do you like the bouncing girl breast shows? Do you like the ultra-violence? Do you like the deep introspective stuff? Are you a Miyazaki fan?
Well, it depends who you're talking to, because you won't really know the level of their interest or their experience. You could say that someone could say I like anime, but all they've seen is Ghibli movies. I know some people that don't even think Studio Ghibli is anime at all. They just think they're Disney movies.
Oh, Lord.
You can call it ignorance, but because when you buy the DVDs, it has Disney on the front, they wouldn't know any better. I guess that's the Western world, obviously.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, and like I said, if it wasn't for Disney, I don't even know how big Studio Ghibli would be. This, I'll be on a worldwide scale. I would say Disney are the ones that really help Studio Ghibli become the world class giants they are, and that's not on a work scale. I'm not talking about the work or the quality. I'm just talking about the awareness and the exposure they brought to Studio Ghibli. Because every time they put one of their movies out, they license them and they redub them in like 11 different languages, and they distribute them across the world. Only Disney have that kind of power. So I always think to myself, if it wasn't for Disney, Studio Ghibli, their works would still be a work of art. But would they be as known as they are right now? I don't think so.
Yeah, I could see that.
And they're getting theatrical releases as well.
But it had to be Disney.
It did. And I'm grateful they recognized the class. They recognized the skill set. On that. So you answered my question. You say you don't see why not.
No, definitely not. I don't see why someone couldn't make a American anime, based in those tropes and that feel. Oh wait, we have Avatar.
Exactly. I was just, and we're talking about America. I'm talking about Russia. I'm talking about India. I'm talking about, and yes, I understand. I heard you say it's expensive. It is expensive, but Japan started with nothing. They started making manga. They started from the bottom, and now we live in a completely different time. I think it's more to do with passion, and like I said, I feel like there needs to be what's the word I'm looking for? Incentive. There needs to be incentive to make people want to do it, because people look at anime and I feel like they feel kind of deflated that they can never do it that much. Or some kid in Africa, I could never do anime. Why not? Give it a try. We've got computers, we've got flash animation. Do manga. Start from the bottom. That's kind of why I'm trying to go around the world and look at different countries doing animation, because Japan have their own voice, they have their own style, as you spent the whole cast focusing on. What would Africa do? What would France do? What would Mexico do? I've been trying to do that on the channel, and I really feel like animation on a global scale could be very creative. I think animation on the whole is one of the most creative mediums of in the planet. And one of the things Japan was doing, going back to anime, was when the Japanese were adapting a lot of these works of literature, like Les Miserables or The Count of Monte Cristo, I thought that was really cool. I said, why didn't France do that? Why aren't these other countries taking some of their best literature or some of their folk tales and doing little animated shorts with them? That would be really fucking cool. But logistically, I'm not stupid. I know it's expensive, it's money, but what can I say? I'm just talking out my ass. I'm wishful thinking. People are just rolling their eyes saying, what is wrong with this guy?
There are a couple of examples of it. It's just not in animation. I mean, animation is an incredibly expensive medium, and it's very time consuming.
Yeah.
And if you botch something and you have it past your production stuff, that's a few grand just down the hole that you can't use. But I think the examples for just kind of the world market are comic books. There's comic books from absolutely every single country. I mean, there's some really good ones. I can't ever find a translated version of it, but there was a Mexican comic book called Cyber 6 that got adapted by a Canadian studio into a cartoon. It was actually, really impressive, different characters and stuff along those lines, and I would say it was actually influenced by a lot of Japanese media. And then YouTube might even be the open medium. I mean, there's tons and tons of animators.
Yes.
I would say that people try and, make parodies to try and get their channel to be a bit more popular, but, there are some really creative storytellers out there.
And I'm holding my breath to see it. And guys, if you've got on this all this way to the podcast, I really thank you. To be honest with you, Gax, you might think this was long. This was an average length, because back in the day we used to do 2 to 3 hour podcasts, believe it or not, and people were still listening. So, and actually people have always told me, hey, get back to those long anime podcasts, you missed them. So this was a good example of that. And Gax, I really appreciate your opinion. I really hope I gave you a chance to kind of express your thoughts on the subject of the anime industry. I thought you spoke well, and I thought you had a lot of good food for thought, to be honest with you.
Yes. I guess it's rare to actually have someone be positive, but I love the industry as it is, so I can't wait to see it grow. I really hope there's more studios that do more experimental stuff, and I can't wait to see what happens to Studio Trigger.
If you did enjoy talking with us, I would love to have you back on, because next year I'm going to be doing anime reviews. Yes, see, after all my criticism, I'm actually going to go back to review anime. And we're going to have Gax on, and we're going to have a nice, I wouldn't even say good cop, bad cop. We're just going to have a nice, honest...
That's exactly what I was thinking, actually.
I know. That's what people are going to expect anyway. But guys, it's going to be interesting. We're going to be fair. You know, on Plane Tyro, we're very critical, but we're honest, and we try to be somewhat analytical. And honesty is the policy, guys. So, you know, Gax, I want to say thank you for coming on, guys. Check out Gax's channel. There's going to be an annotation on the screen right now. If you're not watching and you're listening, check out the links in the description. I'll put a link to his channel, his Twitter, his Tumblr, anything he's got. I'm going to put a link down there. He's got a great channel. He's been a great guest. He's got a great speaking voice. And, you know, if you want anime news to your door, the best news, not just the tripe, the most interesting news presented in a very humorous, comical, and very classy way, check out Mr. Gax-Bot's channel. You won't be disappointed. He gets a Planet Tyro seal of approval.
Aw. Do I get like a medal or a certificate for that?
How about a virtual high five?
Ooh, I'll take one of those.
There you go. Right there, people. So I tell you, people, thank you for watching. Hit that like button if you like the conversation. I know it was long, but we're going to have Gax on more. Tell us what you want to hear. If you want to hear more from Gax, if we didn't answer any questions about him or about the conversation, or if you completely hated my rambles or my point of view or Gax's point of view, anything, good, bad, negative, positive, what have you, leave it in the comments down below. We want to hear it. We're not shy. I will not block the comments. Hit that dislike button as well if you don't like it. Guys, it's all about perspective. It's all about being honest. We don't care. We just want to share and discuss. And guys, again, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Mr. Gax-Bot, for joining me on this podcast. It's been a long time since I did a guest spot with a new blood. And I'm glad to be talking with you. I'm glad to be working with you in future. And I'm going to hold you to that invitation. I hope you do come. I hope I didn't scare you off.
Oh no, I'm terrified.
Okay, you sound terrified, so that's good.
Put me in my place. That way I won't argue against your points of view next time.
Sure. You can never argue with me. I'm a rambler. You know how it is, guys. But anyway, that's enough of that, guys. It's been over an hour. Thanks for checking out the whole video, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care.
Take it easy.